Hello everybody and welcome back to the Science Of, the show where I take a look at the science behind your favourite games, shows and more. Today, we're delving into the waters and oceans of the Kanto region to take a look at some water-type Pokemon from the original Kanto Pokedex. Naturally, there have been more and more of these aqueous Pokemon with each generation, with there currently being as many as 157 water Pokemon, making up over 15% of all Pokemon in existence, ranging in shapes from fish, crabs, penguins, ducks, and of course ninja frogs. But seeing as Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games were recently added to Nintendo Switch Online, we're only going to be taking a look at the most classic of water Pokemon from the original Kanto Pokedex. Now there are a ton of water type Pokemon to choose from the Kanto Pokedex, which featured 32 water type Pokemon. These all had classic designs ranging from ducks to turtles to transparent tadpoles. Let's start our journey through water-type Pokemon by taking a look at a Pokemon that's often put at the very bottom of battle rankings, normally being perceived as being a bit pathetic and overall useless. I am of course talking about Magikarp. This piscine Pokemon just can't seem to catch a break with its representation throughout the series, with all Pokedex entries focusing on Magikarp being a pathetic creature that used to be far stronger than it is now. But it's not entirely surprising, with Magikarp only being able to learn 3 moves through leveling up, and 2 of those moves having no attack power. But very few people know about these pathetic Piscine's secret power that makes it untouchable by any predator, whether they be dragon or ditto. In the Pokemon anime episode Battle Aboard the St. Anne, Team Rocket's James falls prey to a classic scam found throughout the Pokemon games, buying a Magikarp from a shady salesman who advertises it as a money-making machine. Upon the inevitable sinking of the unsinkable St. Anne, Team Rocket along with the main trio are left floating on a raft with their only real source of food being the Magikarp. But surprisingly, it seems that this Magikarp can use Harden, because Team Rocket's Meowth attempts to bite into it and finds that the Magikarp scales are so tough that they can't be pierced. Now, most fish scales provide protection from predators for fish without severely compensating their ability to move. When looking for fish with the toughest of tough scales, we find the genus Arapaima, a large species of fish that's found around the Amazon and Essequibo basins of Southern America. Whilst these might not fit the look of Magikarp at all, these fish have the toughest armour around, made up of uniquely structured scales that protect them from the piranha-infested lakes of the Amazon. These scales have 2 distinct layers. First of all, a laminate composition of parallel collagen fibres. Collagen is the main structural protein in a lot of connective tissues and consists of amino acids that form a tightly wound fibre. These collagen fibres are arranged in a twisting spiral structure called a boulagon. Then on top of the collagen fibres, there's a highly mineralised surface layer that prevents any penetration into the scale. These scales have been assessed with electron microscopy to give these incredibly detailed images of their structure. And when you see the complicated layers, it really isn't surprising that these fish can withstand forces up to 1.7 million pounds of force per square inch. And given that 1 psi is equal to around 7,000 newtons per meter squared, that's a pretty damn impressive amount of force. It's no wonder that Meowth couldn't puncture Magikarp's skin. That fish has some pretty significant armour. In fact, I'm certain that Magikarp would be safe from any ballistic test that we would care to carry out. But that's enough about Magikarp's bulletproof scales. Did you know? Pokemon's second most iconic water evolutionary line, more on the first later, take their inspiration from several sources. Gyarados' design definitely has a lot of Chinese influences to its design, with it having more than a passing similarity to the Chinese dragon. These dragons aren't like the dragons seen in Western media, often lacking limbs and definitely lacking wings. Even the evolution of the weak Magikarp to the beastly Gyarados is a reference to Chinese mythology. In the Chinese myth, the carp jumps over the dragon's gate. A red carp is swimming upstream through the Yellow River found in the Hunan province of China, where it comes across a waterfall at Dragon's Gate. Whilst many carp attempt to swim up the waterfall only to fail, the red carp was able to vault the waterfall through sheer determination. As a reward for the carp's determination and perseverance, the carp is transformed into a dragon, letting it guard the waterfall and being in charge of rainfall. This is such a great origin for Magikarp and might explain why it was so useless starting out. Moving from magical carp to seahorses now, as we take a look at another iconic Pokemon from Pokemon Red, Blue and Green. Horsea and Seadra are personal favourites when it comes to the original 150 Pokemon, what with their cubit-like snoots and dragon-like appearance. Even if those dragon elements went out the window with Kingdra, looking more like a mixture between a seahorse and coral in gold and silver. The Horsea line is well known for one specific ability, Throughout the game's Pokedex entries and illustrated throughout the Pokemon anime, Horsea, Seadra and Kingdra all share the ability to escape threats by shooting an ink-like substance from their mouth. This is a pretty fun power to give a seahorse, but the ability actually comes from a group of sea life called coleoid cephalopods. This group of creatures first appeared on the Earth around 500 million years ago, and is made up of over 700 species, including all manner of squids, cuttlefish and octopi, so it's a fair distance from our seahorses. When it comes to cephalopods, you tend to find that ink is only produced by species that live in low light or dark environments. Cephalopod ink is composed of secretions from two independent glands. The best known is the ink sac, that produces a black ink that contains ink rich in the chemical melanin. The second organ is a funnel organ that produces mucus. These two chemicals then get mixed together to produce the final ink secretion. And the fun thing about these secretions is that depending on the ratio of ink to mucus, you can get some surprising variety of different ink forms, ranging from diffuse clouds like smoke screens to little objects that look a little bit like squids called pseudoforms, and finally long thin rope forms. With the Horsea line, we actually see two distinct varieties of ink. In Pokemon the third movie, we see a Kingdra using its ink as a smokescreen during a battle against a Goldeen. And earlier in the anime episode Tentacle and Tentacruel, we see the ink being used to draw a picture of the titular Pokemon on water. We know that the two applications would need different ratios of ink and mucus, as the ink wouldn't be able to form distinct lines if it had more ink than mucus. It would create a much cloudier image. It's great to see these kinds of details, even if you never see this kind of ink shoot out of a seahorse. But that's enough small fry. It's time for us to haul in our catch of the day. Now, Pokemon's first generation definitely included a slew of iconic water-type Pokemon, but in my opinion, there are none more iconic than the Squirtle line, including Squirtle, Wartortle, and Blastoise. Blastoise in particular is a very interesting Pokemon, not only being the cover Pokemon of Pokemon Blue, but also featuring some impressive shoulder-mounted water cannons, which can hit enemies accurately from as far as 50 meters. Now of course, there aren't any real-world turtles that utilize cannons to shoot down passing prey, but surprisingly, there is a species that uses water in a similar way to Blastoise. Meet the archfish, otherwise known as Labrus jaculator. This pint-sized bowman has a genius method of catching their prey. When the archfish has found some insect to eat, it's able to use its eyes almost like a sniper scope, rotating their eye so that the image falls into a specific section of its eye in the ventral temporal periphery of its retina. Once it's located its prey, the fish lips break the surface of the water, forming a small groove between the roof of its mouth and its tongue to form a tight channel. Now that there's a barrel for water to shoot out of, the fish is able to force water through it by contracting its gill covers. The most interesting part of this is that it doesn't result in a solid stream of water hitting the target as you might expect, but the water at the back moves faster than the water at the front, causing it to form an aqueous glob right before it hits the unfortunate insect. But don't for a moment imagine that they're going to be this accurate from the moment they're hatched. Young archfish hunt in schools, increasing the chance that one of their water guns will hit prey. But it's not just water guns that archfish use to catch their prey. When chasing prey underwater, the archfish are able to use water jets, but no one knows which came first. The most likely explanation is that the two techniques were developed in parallel circumstances, as improvements in one technique could easily be adapted to the other. And whilst this isn't as impressive as Blastoise's cannon, well, how could it be? It is still really impressive that we've got a move in the real world that is so similar to the water gun attacks seen time and time again throughout the Pokemon franchise. Alongside the accuracy of Horsea's ink, it seems that these water attacks are not as far-fetched as it might seem from the surface. So there we go. Pokemon's well known for taking a lot of influence from specific species when designing each generation, but Gen 1 is leaps and bounds beyond what I would expect. It'd be nice to take a look throughout the series to see how this changes from Gen 1 to, what are we at now, Gen 9? Jeez. If you want to see me talk more about the science behind Pokemon, then comment down below telling me what your favourite Pokemon is. Best comments will appear at the end of the next video. Or if you want to see me cover the science behind another specific Pokemon type, then take a look at the video here, where you can see me discuss electric type Pokemon. Or if you want to see me discuss some more iconic starter Pokemon, then take a look at the video here, where I take a look at the zoological origins behind the starters from Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. Either way, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, so you can keep up to date on the latest science of, and see more of the science behind your favourite game shows and more.